Microsoft, in around 2008 or so, embarked on a real flip of their methodologies as far as selling licensing, revenue, and all that kind of good stuff, because they were having problems with these irregular updates of their products. You know, you had a lot of people who bought XP and Office 2003 back in 2003 that hadn't paid Microsoft a dime since then, because it worked. There was a combination of great products. And so one of the things that's happening, and this is because, and I think this is important, especially when you're thinking about when to upgrade or what to upgrade or how to upgrade, is knowing what they're doing in the background kind of makes it easier so you're not surprised by this stuff. Is they've pretty much come out with a new strategy, and that's a 4-year release cycle. Now what they're doing is they're essentially putting out major editions of their products, both server and desktop, every 4 years. And minor revisions or releases in between. So you've got Server 2008, Server 2008 R2. And now the next version, which of course would be Server 2000, wait a minute, it's Server 8. Okay, the numbering and the naming system, that's never going to change for Microsoft. They're going to be all over the place. Similarly, you have SQL 2008, SQL 2008 R2, which came out in 2010, SQL 2012, which just came out, Office 2010. Now the next version that's coming out now, the release version. So, did that happen with Windows 7? Sort of. Except they call it Vista, which has the huge fan club. Then they came out 2 years later with Vista R2, except nobody wanted to hear anything with the word Vista on it, so they called it Windows 7. 2 years later, they're coming out with Windows 8. So, when you're looking at what Microsoft's doing, keep that in mind, because the whole XP, which was 2003? 2001? Okay, cool. So you have 2001 to Vista, which was, you know, several years. No, that's not going to happen anymore. Because Microsoft wants to get you used to the idea of upgrades coming out. Why are they going to do that? Because they're also changing a lot of their licensing models from, instead of I'll buy it once and never send you a check again, to recurring models. Whether you look at it from a software assurance, open value, Office 365. So instead of paying a big chunk up front and you'll never pay money again, instead you're going to pay a regular fee, whether that be an annual or monthly or whatever. So keep that in mind when we start talking about a lot of these things. So that's one aspect of to me, what really drives a lot of what Microsoft is doing in terms of product releases and all that kind of stuff. So the whole planning thing, if any of you were involved with IT planning as far as expenditures for organizations and all that kind of thing, pretty much you can go to the bank on this, because they've been, for the last 4 years, everything has been sliding into that model. So especially if you're going back to the boss and talking about updates and all that kind of good stuff, have that conversation ahead of time. So you can say, by the way, Microsoft is now releasing stuff every 4 years, and every 2 years they release something meaningful between. Because otherwise you get, didn't we just buy that? Didn't we just upgrade that? Didn't we just, or you're ready to basically say, no, we don't need to do that. Okay. The second issue that really affects what we're talking about today is it used to be, back in the day, that Microsoft sales were driven by the killer app. That application that everybody absolutely had to have, and if you didn't have it, your life would be miserable. Whether it be the next version of Excel, the next version of Word, Internet Explorer, Outlook, whatever. And so people would upgrade their hardware and therefore their software, and Microsoft saw the money coming in. But the past 3 or 4 years, all of the update, all of the killer apps have been in. They've been internet-based. No one's buying new hardware because of Facebook. If you're able to get to, you know, the internet on your XP, using that as a poster child, you're fine. So that's not driving it. And then in addition, you have Apple and Google with the Droids and the iPads who are coming out with these things, which technically aren't PCs. Well, this one is. And so you have people who are doing portability. And as little as 3 or 4 years ago, IT shops for larger organizations wouldn't allow you to touch the corporate stuff with these. They weren't secure, we don't support those. They don't have the choice anymore. They have to support these. There's too many of them and they're just too darn powerful. So Microsoft, and it's interesting, depending upon who you want to believe, there's all sorts of reports saying the death of the PC is upon us because look at the share of internet-based devices. The percentage of them are PCs is shrinking. Well, and then other people say, well, no, but look at the number of PCs that are sold. That's still growing. You know, figures don't lie, liars figure. But one of the big issues was Microsoft wasn't making any decent money out of these. So here we go with Windows 8. Okay. Windows 8 is actually going to be on 4 different levels. So we'll talk about the different editions in a second. But first of all, you've got the server. And that's essentially a replacement for Windows Server 2008, or 2008 R2. It's the next version of that. And Kevin will talk about that because you have to actually be fairly smart to understand that. So I wanted to see if Kevin's really smart. That's why he's talking about it. Desktop. Okay? That's the equivalent of the Windows 7. That's going to be your classic PC. Okay? And then I'll skip one and go to the phone. The Windows Phone. Right now, Windows Phone 7 is out. This will essentially be an upgrade to Windows Phone 8. Now, it's interesting that when Windows Phone 7 came out, and it's purely speculative on my part, but to listen to Microsoft had really high expectations of that phone and really thought that that phone was going to drive a lot of people to purchase Windows 7, the desktop operating system. It didn't happen. Windows 7 ended up selling fine by itself, and Phone 7 really hasn't done a lot. Right now, if you hear Microsoft talk about it, they're expecting the opposite to happen this time. They're hoping that the Windows Tablet and Desktop editions are going to drive a lot of sales. I think we've got a couple seats still here.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Which apparently Susie, I didn't feel like pointing out to you, so, you know.
You know I'll sit anywhere.
Yes, and I really wish you'd read that restraining order, right? It's there for a reason, okay? Sorry about the mace. Anyway, usually someone's giving me that abuse. Anywho, so Microsoft has high hopes for the phone, but it's really the tablet that's driving a lot of this. And that's where it gets interesting. Okay. They just announced today, or yesterday, sorry, the actual versions of the Windows 8 for the end user. Okay? And before it was Home, Home Premium, Professional, Enterprise, Ultimate, They're pretty much simplifying it to 4 versions. And actually, you want to?
Yes, the Windows 8, the top one up there, that's going to be your equivalent to Home. They're not doing the whole Home Premium and Home, what's the other one? There's Starter, Basic. Yeah, Basic. Basic and Professional, they're doing away with that. Windows, just plain Windows 8, that's going to be your equivalent to the Home consumer version. Windows 8 Pro is going to be your equivalent of Windows 7 Pro. That's where you get your domain connectivity, some other remote management, virtualization is going to be in that one. So that's the one you're going to see go on the power user level and the one you see with smaller corporate. Enterprise, that one is only available through volume licensing, so the majority of people won't see it except for your IT managers and whatnot. That has everything Pro does, with more capabilities for remote management, deployment, things like that. Windows RT is actually what they're codenaming, or they're calling version that'll be on the ARM-based tablets. You have to stress the word ARM because Bob has his, if you look at Windows 8 tablet here, this guy is running a x86 processor. This is running the equivalent of Windows 8, Windows 8 Pro, Windows 8 Enterprise. The ARM-based one, which are going to be your direct competition for the iPad and the Android tablets, that's what the ARM one is going to be. That's the stripped-down one that you can't run all the applications, you can't join the domain. It's a lighter duty one, and fortunately, it comes with a lighter price point. Most of those, I think, are around the $400 range, again, to compete with the iPads and other tablets.
Yeah, and to add on to that, so just to be real clear here, this is what businesses are going to be using. If you're connecting, one of these two, I should say. If you're connecting to a network, you're one of these two. This one will not connect to a business network. Okay? Now, if I remember correctly, between the time that they released Windows 7, or announced Windows 7 and went to beta or open beta, and the time they released it, they actually made a couple of changes. So it wouldn't surprise me if this changes a little bit, but actually this is a lot simpler than the Windows 7 was. And the Windows 7 was actually simpler than the XP. So they're actually simplifying the licensing and all that fun stuff. And it's all based on the same code. Okay, it's the same code. So, now, what's interesting, as Kevin mentioned, and I'm first going to show this without being connected to the display, and then I'll connect it. This is Windows 8 on a tablet. Okay? Now, I want to be real clear. This is the professional edition. This is full-blown Windows. This is not the ARM version. So, in theory, any application that can run on Windows can run on this device. There's a couple limitations, and we'll get into that. But to give a couple of examples of the difference, this is, by the way, this is a Samsung tablet. Got it about 6 weeks ago, thereabouts. This has 4 gig of RAM. It's running an Intel processor. I think it's Intel. Yeah, it's Intel.
It's an i5.
Okay. And it has 128 gig of hard drive storage, but it's SSD storage, meaning it's solid state, so no moving parts. This puppy's a powerhouse, relatively speaking, for Windows tablets. This costs retail for about $1,500. Okay. But I want to stress, this is not a direct competitor for the iPad. That's going to be the ARM-based tablets that Kevin was talking about. And here's the fun part. You can't get any because they don't exist yet. All right? Now, the release date for Windows 8 is mid-end of October. And the reason being is because they want to make sure the holiday sales, end-of-year sales. Okay? Manufacturers are lining up to say, yes, they're going to produce them, but they haven't done so yet. There are some preliminary copies of hardware, the ARM hardware is available, but not enough for the general public. What we've also added is picture-based passwords. So right now you can see a picture of one of my cats. It was the cat that actually knocked this off onto the floor. First day I had this, but the ashes are, well, anyway. But what you can do is you can actually identify the motions, 3 motions, and based on those 3 motions, oh great, you all know my password. Based on those 3 motions, I've unlocked the tablet. Now I could also, there's also a button there to click, say use the password, so I can go back that. But as far as, and it has to be relatively accurate and all that kind of fun stuff. But that makes it very easy to unlock this tablet without really compromising the security at all. That actually appeals to me.
Can you use your finger instead?
I did. I picked up the stylus because I wanted to see how many people were really paying close attention. Room -1. And for those of you who this is your first lunch and are, yes, this is how I am at all of them. Now here's one of the challenges is that with Windows 7, you remember there was an interface called the Arrow interface, and that had a lot of the graphical stuff you could do as far as, you know, to have transparent windows and all that kind of thing. It was dependent upon the graphics driver and the resolution. Some of the Metro stuff is as well. So I can't remember what the minimum resolution is.
It's 1024 by...
It's not 768, it's higher than that.
No, it's something by 768.
Oh, okay. Well, it might be that, because it's higher than the 1024, because that's what this guy does. The problem is that some of the Metro animation will not work when we hook up to the projector. So, I wanted to show you that one thing. Now this device also has Bluetooth, it has one USB port, it has HDMI. So I can hook up a wireless mouse and keyboard, I can hook up an external monitor, I can hook up and do all those things. So it's a full-blown PC. And one of the most important things with Windows is we love our start menu. Well, maybe not so much anymore. This is the start menu. This is the Metro interface. Yeah, I made mention it. She was at Saturday's meeting. She was not one of the mean people. There were a couple people I thought they were going to hurt each other. And me without my video camera.
She said, I don't like that. She stood up, she said, I don't have to take this. She stood up and left.
And I love my mom, but sometimes. Actually, she has a point. Now, what we're going to show you is we're going to show you this on a tablet to start with. And on a tablet, this is a very cool interface. When you get to the PC, though, it loses a little bit. And every person that I've spoken to who's been playing with Windows 8 has been playing with it on a desktop using either desktop or server. And everybody, this is the big issue, is the interface. I purposefully avoided. I have never touched the Windows 8 desktop or server. I waited until I got a tablet, and I strictly went with the tablet, and I laugh at them. Because, well, I can't. The tablet level of the interface actually works very nicely and very powerfully. Okay? So here we go. And as you can see, we've got blocks of applications, and these applications were called Metro apps, Metro-enabled apps, which means that they work within the Metro world. And so we've got some social media, and this will be interesting because Bethany's status update dealt with her finding a rattlesnake, so I'm not sure we want to look at that one. You know, we've got Internet Explorer, mail, photos, so if I just tap, then we get a resolution issue. Okay, well, I'll just go to the desktop then. This you're used to. This is the Windows. Okay? Anybody notice anything missing?
No.
It's not missing. It's over here. That's the start menu. Okay? And you'll notice that I'm doing some things, and we'll see if I knock this out. I did the last time. With this, there's actually several actions that you take by simply sweeping your finger from one side. Did I disconnect it again?
Yes.
That's my way. Well, let me disconnect for a second so I can show you, and then we'll go back. There are several actions that you can do simply by sweeping your finger from off-screen to on-screen. So for example, here, we can do search, share, get back to this menu, devices and settings. If I go to settings, it gives me things such as the wireless connection, screen resolution, things along those lines. Similarly, if I go sweep down from the bottom, I can see all the applications that I currently have installed and choose which applications to launch. So I've got that capability. Similarly, if I sweep from the left, I cycle through, actually I only have one thing open, I cycle through the various things that I have open.
Can you set which one's your home page or the first screen you see?
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. Because actually you're just going through them from one to the next to the next. But that does bring up an interesting other point, is you also don't close applications in Windows 8, which is kind of interesting. And that takes some getting used to. So let's see if we can get back over to here.
How does the memory management work then?
The memory management manages it. So the question is, how does memory management deal with the applications? What happens is that it's similar to some of the other tablets. What will happen is it keeps all applications in memory until it runs low on memory. Then it'll close the oldest application in terms of usage. So if it hasn't used, if you have application A, B, and C all consuming memory, and we run out of available memory, if application A was used most recently, B was used second most frequently, and C was used or recently, least recently, it'll close application C automatically in the background.
If you run a desktop as a mouse, you click on the upper left-hand corner, your open app will show up, and you right-click on that, you can close it that way.
And it's interesting you point that out. There are some mouse things you can do to actually close applications. You can also open up the task manager in your Windows. The mouse thing doesn't work with a tablet because it's not recognizing the mouse. Okay? And so, but one of the other issues here, and this gets back to some of the discussion that we had on Saturday, is we shouldn't be in that position to have to remember even more arcane keyboard or mouse tricks in order to do these things that we didn't have to know those before. And that's, I think, what is going to be one of the big pushbacks as far as this goes. So, I still can't.
Probably would have, maybe showing it from the desktop version.
Yeah. So, let's see about, yeah, the Metro apps I think are just not going to work as far as the resolution. I apologize for that. And we could show a little bit of that when Kevin gets going on his stuff. And if we go and we could sweep, you'll notice that we have these things in groups. We can create and modify our own groups of applications. There's also, Microsoft has created an online app store, so you can download and try new applications and all that fun stuff, some with cost, some without cost. And really what they're trying to do is they're trying to get into that iPad world. Now, Microsoft has announced that this year will also be the release of Office 2012. One of the challenges has been, what will 2012 do on a Windows 8 RT? As well as just what will it do just generally? There will be a huge focus on getting onto the tablet world. There will be some of the Office 12 applications will work on a Windows 8 RT tablet. I believe Word, Excel, and I think PowerPoint's the other one. There might be one other, I can't remember. The rest of them will not. The rest of them will require a full-blown Windows, which this guy is. But they're looking to have the tablet price point to be around from the $400 or $500 range. And well, in order to do that, you're not going to get a full-blown Windows tablet. So.
Is there a Windows Explorer for your drive, folders, all that stuff?
Mm-hmm. It's still in there.
Yep. Okay. Let's see. To give you an idea on the Metro side, if I go to Internet Explorer, in that program, I can sweep things, and it'll show me pages that I've gone to since I last booted the system. So I can go from this page to this page, take a look. Similarly, I can sweep up, and it'll show me whether or not it wants me to pin, reset. Here's the address I want to go to, and here's utilities and all that fun stuff. So again, the sweeping of the finger up and down and all that has a big part. And as we noticed, there's no X up at the top right. There is no way to close this application because it's in memory. Okay?
What's battery life like with 8?
So far, I've got about 8 hours on this guy. And keep in mind that it's a full-blown, so it's more power. I think AMD and Intel just made some announcements last week that they're looking to, I think their goal is to have about double what an iPad battery has. That's their goal, whether they'll meet it or not. That's one of the, I don't want to call it an Achilles heel, but I will, is the ARM hardware. It's just so up in the air right now. And for those of you who went through Vista, one of the biggest problems that Vista had absolutely nothing to do with Vista, it had to do with the hardware, is literally a couple of months before Vista came out, a couple of the hardware manufacturers, and Dell was one of them, reneged on their promise to be selling primarily hardware that was Vista ready. They basically said, we can't do it, not for the cost that we're looking at, so we're going to keep selling XP. Well, Microsoft basically capitulated, and they came out with a new version of Vista. There was Vista Ready, and then there was Vista Compatible, which is kind of the got a good personality blind date concept, all right? And what that meant was that the computer that you buy is going to have a Windows logo, and the title is going to imply that it's ready to run Vista, but in fact, by everybody's admission, it really doesn't have the horsepower. horsepower. And one of the challenges that I've got, at least, is the ARM desktops or hardware being so undefined right now. I'm concerned that that's going to be an issue when they come out. And if they are, people are going to be screaming about it way before they actually hit the street, because no one wants to get bamboozled like that again. But that to me is one of the Achilles heels.
There is one other thing about the power. You notice how Bob's switched between the Metro interface and the regular desktop
Oh, yeah.
interface. According to Microsoft, and I read a couple other things about it, the Metro interface, because of the way it does the memory management and it pushes things to the background, I think I was reading anywhere from like about 20% saving in power or 20% increase in battery life just sticking in the Metro interface. So you also have on the desktop side, like if you use it on a laptop or something like that, and you need to be in Metro mode, you will save a little bit more power. So that was something else that they did with them.
Okay. So one other thing I want to show is there's Word. And the reason I show this is because any chance I get to bring up Word is a happy time for me, because I'm very easily pleased. But also, if I can, is there a way for me to do that here? Actually. There it is. How do you actually enter anything into this bloody thing? Now again, like I say, you can have a Bluetooth or a USB-based keyboard and mouse, in which case that's fine. You also have several keyboard combinations, a full touch keyboard, which essentially goes like this, a split keyboard for those of us with 3 hands. You know who you are. And then handwriting recognition. Now, if anyone's seen my handwriting, my first question is, can you please tell me what I wrote, because I can't read it. But this actually does pretty good.
You're actually on something taking.
Okay? Not always. Yeah, it'll...
Your left arm is in the way.
Sorry about that.
Is autocorrect as amusing here as it is on the iPhone?
Well, as you see, there's, first of all, it's not autocorrect in the sense that it's just taking it and translating it over. So you can then click on this and change it that way. And I'll admit there's ways to change it, like to uppercase and lowercase, and I haven't gotten that much into it. But then when you're done, you just click on insert. And I think I had, oh, I didn't have Word selected.
Typical. We're not responding.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Typical.
You broke it already.
There you go. Actually, I may have done this myself because I was having trouble. I was trying to do a shutdown and restart this morning, and kind of shut something down before I should have. So that one might be me.
Pull the cord out.
No, I did more than that. How about that? Okay. That's exciting. Yay! Software worked. We're all pleased. So, actually, that's one thing I want to show also real quick.
You broke it again.
Yeah.